Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Books with Nate, and it's been some time since I've done a check-in. I think about 2 months now, just over 2 months, so I figured why not just kind of go over what I've been reading over the last few months, really during the summer. And yeah, it's been quite a discovery for me. I've read about 8 books since beginning of June, which for me is quite a lot. I usually read like 2 books a month, so it's been mostly fantasy still, but a lot of fiction, which is kind of new for me, and I'm happy about it. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. The first book I finished in June was The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and yeah, it's follows a Native American boy on a reservation in the 80s, and looks at the kind of what life was like for a teenage boy at that time, but it's also the main sort of plot behind it is that his mother is attacked and nearly murdered, and subjected to sexual violence, and him and his father's a judge on the reservation, uh, you know, coming into all these roadblocks in this process of trying to find out who did it, and that's the mystery behind it. But it's also an exploration of boyhood and sort of just trying to find, and also dealing with the consequences of what happened, and just really looking at sort of these dynamics within the community, and with a boy and his parents. The author does a great job of describing the scenery, which is set on the North Dakota plains in the 80s, and it takes place on a Ojibwe reservation. And I think she just does a really great job of also describing what it's like to be a teenage boy, just in general, talking about, what life is like, trying to get off the reservation, or and just in generally talking about like, girls and all that, and also just talking about life in general, and just sort of their expectations. I think she does a really good job of describing that. And same with some of his friends, you can really sense the camaraderie that they have as teenagers, and just describing that relationship that they have with one another. However, I do think the author could have given more space and time for some of these relationships to breathe a bit more, because it became a bit jarring at times in regards to some of the events that happened. It just kind of felt like things would happen out of nowhere. So, I think overall, I liked the book. I did like it. The mystery behind it that is kind of touted as, what you're expecting. It's not, it doesn't seem to be, it just kind of happens, and there's consequences to what happens, and how the main character deals with this, and how the mother deals with it all, which I think is all really well done. However, it's just not, it just kind of feels like it just kind of happens out of nowhere. So I like the book. I can see why people really liked it. It won the National Book Award for Fiction here in the UK. So I can see it, but yeah, I just think some of what it was marketed as wasn't exactly what I got. So expectations maybe differed from what was delivered. The next book I finished was James by Percival Everett. This is about Jim, or James, from Huckleberry Finn, the enslaved man who kind of helps Huckleberry Finn out on his journey, kind of not by choice, really, in some ways. And it's a really well done book. It's kind of a satire of it all. It's from Jim's perspective, and I think Everett does a really great job with the character of Jim, really showing his thoughts and what he's going through mentally, physically, emotionally, essentially leaving his family, but trying to save them at the same time, because he runs away and stumbles upon Huck Finn, and they kind of go on their journey together, but he also has all of his own stuff that he's dealing with the whole time, because they do get separated at one point. And yeah, I think James, who he goes by in here, is I think just a brilliant character. I think Everett does a really great job with language and understanding, the dynamics behind it all, because there's the stereotypical, racist black talk or black speech or whatever you want to call it, that uh, you know they're expected to use. Black people are in this book, and so they kind of do that. But then when black people are talking to each other, it's just typical English, and it's kind of this interesting dynamic, what they call slave talk versus and when somebody overhears James talking about it or talking in a normal speech, it's jarring to them and they don't know what's going on. So I just think that whole dynamic was really well done. Yeah, and I think just writing the emotions for James was really well done. So I highly recommend checking this out. There's just won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, I believe, this past year. So yeah, check it out. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. I highly recommend it. It's pretty short too, so it's not a super long read. Yeah, recommend it. Next up, I read The Trees by Percival Everett. This is a mystery that's also a satire. He seems to like to write satires that takes place in the South, modern day, and it follows two kind of buddy cop investigators, black investigators, who go to this town to solve these murders that have been happening, and essentially kind of the mystery behind it is they find the body of what appears to be Emmett Till, and everybody's really confused about what's going on. The cops have to deal with racism and all this discrimination that's going on within the police force that's trying to investigate this, but there's also this kind of grander scale thing that's happening. Yeah, I really liked it. It was pretty funny. Sometimes it got a little too hokey at times in its description, but maybe that's just more accurate than I think it is. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty well done book. I think the mystery wasn't as it just didn't feel well plotted out, and I think he could have done a better job with that. But maybe that wasn't the point. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was pretty good. I'd recommend it if you're looking for just kind of a fun mystery satire. Yeah, I liked him. I liked Percival Everett. I do want to read more of his works now, with the Trees and with James. So yeah, I'd recommend checking it out if you want something that's kind of just funny, and it's pretty short again as well. Next is The Crimson Guard by Ian C. Elsamont. This is the second book in the novels of the Malazan Empire. I won't say too much on this. I already made a review. I'll link it here. I liked it. It was really good for the world building, and I think the lore, and there were some really great moments and great characters, but I think most of it I wasn't too impressed by, and I think was maybe a bit poor. So I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 or something. I would recommend it if you're into Malazan and you want to just kind of dive deeper into all the books, into the world. So check it out if you want. I highly recommend just reading Malazan in general. Next was another fantasy novel, Silverthorn by Raymond E. Feist. This is the second book in the series, the Rift War saga. This book was not my favorite. It didn't really capitalize on what had going for it in the first book, The Magician, or The Magician's Apprentice and Magician Master. It follows, the plot is just kind of stupid. It's essentially just trying to find a cure. The princess has been poisoned, and now we have to go find the cure, and we kind of go off on our little adventure. And I didn't really care for it too much, and there's this thief character, Jimmy, who I didn't care about, and we get stuff from his perspective, and I find him just really annoying. And from what I understand, in future novels there's more of him, or just like books purely about him. So yeah, not gonna read those. However, I still want to continue the series because it does bring in some more world building to it with Pug. You get some more Pug, who I really like as a character, um, and just kind of this like grander scale of things that's going on. And I really liked his POV in this book, so I think I give it like a 3.25 or so. Like again, I think that side of it with Pug really kind of carried this book for me. Otherwise, I didn't really care for it. I mean, it was fun to kind of go on this adventure, and like I think as a standalone, it would have been fine. But I think just in relation to the first two books, where it starts small and really kind of grows gradually, this book just kind of seemed to like kind of take that big picture stuff and then just, I don't know, it wasn't really well executed, I should say. There's a lot of world building that goes on with that plot line, but it's just not well executed. So yeah. So next up, I read Wind and Truth. I finished it finally. It took me a few months. What do I say? What do I say about this? I don't want to. It's hard because I feel like a lot of the, I don't want to be one of those like negative Nancy's about it all, but reading this made me appreciate the first few books even more, because I think those books were very well executed considering their length and the characters they brought in, just like all the characters and where they were going. The fourth book, Sanderson just kind of starts to get lost in the sauce a bit, but I'm like, okay, maybe there's something going on here, like we're expanding, we're doing all this. However, this just was executed incredibly poorly, I think. People will say, oh, look at all the plot, look at this world building. I think that was great. However, the character work was incredibly poor. I'm going to make a full review of this at some point, I think. But just to kind of have it short here, I just think the character work was not well done in this book. I can see where some of the characters got to, in regards to, I won't say names, but to keep it spoiler free, but he just didn't do a good job of getting them there. He's all about journey before destination, and there's really no true journey, exploration of character moments. Like kind of like, I think there's one character who's dealing with depression, and throughout this whole series, and all of a sudden he's just better, and it's just confusing to me, and I didn't have high expectations of this book. I was pretty disappointed overall. I don't know really what else to say too much at this moment, but yeah, I just don't think it was a very good book. Unfortunately, I still gave it, like, being generous, a 3, because I think if you like the series, you'll want to finish it, right? Because you want to finish the series. But just the character work was not well done. The world building was great. I love seeing kind of this like bigger scale, like what's really happening here. And I think Taravangian, sort of the, some of the characters were really, really good. But there were just some character moments that I didn't care about when I should have, because I just think there's just nothing to care about. And there's all these moments of just this exploration of the world building that took up lots and lots of pages that didn't really need to happen. It could have been a lot shorter. And I think Sanderson just needed to have an editor say, hey, cut 500 pages from this book and you'll have a better book. That's what should have happened. I think I'm getting a little too hyped up on this right now, but it was just disappointing. It was fine, but it was disappointing. Then next, I read The Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster Bujold. I started this book back in November of last year, actually, and then just kind of stopped reading it for various reasons. Not because I didn't like it, but I was just reading something else, and I finally picked it up again halfway through and finished it. I really liked her Penrick novella. I've only read the first one, and this takes place in that same world, the world of the five gods. And overall, I did really like this book. I think her character work with the protagonist, Carizil, I believe is his name, was incredibly well done. I didn't like the people he didn't like. I also didn't trust the people that he trusted, just because of the pain that he goes through. And just to kind of talk about what this book is about, it takes place where the hero is kind of fallen. You're picking up the pieces with him essentially, and trying to kind of garner back what he lost. And he was this general who was a hero of the land and all this stuff, and he essentially gets betrayed and enslaved, and then he claws his way back to the court. And this is a political drama of court intrigue and all of that. And I think Bujold does a really good job with that. So where the name Curse of Chalion comes from is there's this curse that's been enacted upon the royal family that he's looking after, and he kind of is trying to solve this. It's not really a mystery, but because it's magically imbued, and he's just trying to lift this curse from them. And just speaking of that plot, I think the plot was all right. It wasn't my favorite thing in the world, just because there were some rather dull moments in the book. There's a lot of conversations and talking between characters, as you would expect in this kind of type of book, this genre. However, I just think sometimes it's a bit boring. In regards to the magic system, it's kind of a softer magic system. It's very much this kind of give and take thing that you see nowadays. However, the gods are very much real. They're more of a presence than a physical manifestation. And I like that. I like this kind of mixture of soft and hard, you could say. I think it was pretty well done. And just sort of what it takes to do some of the things within this magic system. Yeah, sacrifice is very important. Loyalty is important. A lot of themes around sacrifice and loyalty and the costs of that. I also really, just back on character work, I also really hated the antagonists of this book. I think she does great job describing them, making you hate them, because they're not, these like maniacal, horrible human beings, but they're subtle and they're backstabby, and those are just the worst types of people. So yeah, it's really great to see sometimes just the good guys, doing the right thing, and the bad guys being bad. Overall, I really like this book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. It was good. Again, a bit slower. I think political dramas, intrigue stuff, court dramas are not my favorite thing in the world, so that's why it's lower, just because I found the plot to be kind of boring at times. But I can see why people rate this series so highly. I definitely want to read more of the novellas. I do think I want to read the next book at some point soon. I will read it at some point. But in regards to like how soon, I don't know. Not obsessed at the moment. So yeah, I want to continue to read this series, and I recommend her. Next, I read Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. It's an Irish last name, I believe, so Carlos or Yolanda, if you're watching this, please correct me. This is a mystery set on a remote island with climate change is a major theme in this book. It's set on a remote island just outside the Antarctic, and you start with this family who's essentially been not left there, but they're on this island that's a research island to kind of take care of things while the scientists are out. And in that time, a woman washes ashore, and there's this mystery behind why she's there. I think there's a lot of really great things with this book in regards to character history and motivations being very questionable. You get perspectives from the dad of this family. It's just his dad and his 3 kids, and the woman. You get his first-person perspective as well as her first-person perspective, and then you get these third-person perspectives from the kids, which I think is a really interesting way of doing it, because sort of the 2 main drivers of this mystery, who people, the guys who are the people who really know what's going on, maybe, are the man and the woman, the dad and the woman who washed ashore. So I think that was really well done. It's a page turner. There is some good mystery behind it all, and there's also other themes of parenthood and dealing with, it's just a single dad and trying to raise his kids and dealing with the consequences of what's happened here. And just on the theme of climate change, I do prefer when it's a bit more subtly written, because maybe I'm just not the target audience for this because I know that's happening, but she just kind of the island's slowly flooding and they're having to deal with that, and there's this character moment, like this dialogue between 2 or 3 people, and they're just like saying, oh, because it's climate change, because it's climate change. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, I got that from the fact that the island's flooding and stuff is melting. It's pretty obvious. So I just think the beating over the head is a little bit much, but maybe it was not the target audience for that. The timeline was confusing at times as well, because there are some pretty big character moments, but there's no it feels like there's no time given for the characters to get there. It just kind of happens, which is a bit disappointing, because I think I was invested in the characters, because they were well done. It was just where they end up, or how they end up, just in their relationships. It just kind of felt like it just happened out of nowhere. And ultimately, it was just an exploration of family, masculinity, climate change, with this mystery being at the center of it all. So I liked it overall. I would recommend it if you're looking for a fun, pacey mystery. The mystery itself, I think, was good. I'm pretty new to the mystery genre, so I'm still looking for good recommendations out there. So if you have any, let me know. But yeah, it was good. It was a good book. Now on to what I am currently reading and plan to read. The first book I'm reading is The God Is Not Willing by Stephen Erickson. This is the first book in the Witness trilogy, and I started reading it because of the second book that's coming out in October, the No Life Forsaken, that's what it's called. And yeah, I want to read this before that, because I want to get it on release day and start devouring it. So far I'm only like 70 pages in. I like it. I haven't read Erickson for a few months now, so it's kind of getting back into his writing a bit. I like seeing the consequences of the main series, because that's where it picks up. It's about 10 years after the main series, and just looking at what's happening on Gen of Bacchus. And so yeah, I'm gonna keep reading it, obviously. Yeah, I just haven't really hasn't fully clicked, so I don't have much to say on it. I'm just looking forward to reading more Lawson. Next up, I'm also currently reading Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the first Tchaikovsky book I've read. It was just at the library. I was looking for some other sci-fi books that were recommended on Discord, and I couldn't find them, but I was like, hey, this looks interesting enough, so why not? It takes place some time in the distant future, and you follow a guy who's been imprisoned on this world. I think it's Earth, based on what I can tell. That, very small population, they only live in one city, huge wealth disparity, all that jazz. And he's like an academy guy who got caught up in the wrong thing, and now he's been imprisoned and sent to this prison that is absolutely horrendous. And it's, I believe, following sort of his own escape plan, or way of surviving. And I think the point behind it is that one of these people are going to be chosen to be the leader of the city, maybe. But yeah, no, I mean, overall, I actually quite like it. I'm surprised because the first 20 or so pages, I was kind of like, yeah, we'll see. But I kept turning the pages, and I think it's been quite good so far. I like his description of the creatures that they encounter, and just like it felt like chilling to read some of these scenes. I think his plotting's been very good so far, and his pace, just kind of slowly revealing the world a bit through this character's perspective, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading this. I'm like 140 pages in. I just started it 2 days ago, and yeah, I'm hooked on it. So hopefully it pays off. And then next is a book that I've been meaning to read for quite a while. It's by my good friend. His pen name is Simon Carpenter. I've been practicing that a few times. I don't know why I can't say it, but it's Corvidae. It's kind of like he's a very funny guy. He likes his satire. So this is like a satirical kind of, I think, fiction book about, what are they called? Curios, like little trinkets. And I think it's primarily about that. Yeah, and just for looking at memory, I think. So I don't really know too much of what it's about. It's very short. I need to read it. I want to read it. So yeah, that's going to be up in a little bit, I think. So yeah, check him out. He has an Instagram, so check him out. And then finally, I've been meaning to read more nonfiction history. And I feel like every other month, I'm like, I need to read more about the Civil War because, obviously very momentous in the United States history. And I just remember learning about in school, and I know a lot about sort of the battles, stuff like that, but not much about sort of the historiography of it, or like the more political sort of thinking and consequences and all that stuff of it all. So what I'm planning to read is Why the Civil War Still Matters by James McPherson. He wrote the really famous book, The Battle Cry for Freedom, which is sort of a sweeping history of the Civil War. And this is a collection of essays that he's written. He's a professor at Princeton on history, primarily Civil War history. And yeah, it's a pretty short read, which is why I picked it up, just because I want to kind of slowly get my way back into history. Now, that's it from me from a very long video. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Let me know what you're reading, or if you read any of these, and feel free to subscribe, like it, do whatever you want with it, and I will talk to you soon.